Hello then, good afternoon ladies and gentlemen. This is L24 News, streaming live from the capital Algiers. I'm Abdurrahim Kashwan. Coming up next in our news program. Satellite images show a Russian military convoy stretching about 40 miles, far bigger than initially thought, as troops close in on Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Talks between delegates from Russia and Ukraine near the Belarusian border seem not to offer any breakthrough to the ongoing crisis. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has gone from downplaying the likelihood of Russian attack to inspiring Ukrainians to fight against the invader. Satellite images show a Russian military convoy stretching about 40 miles, far bigger than initially thought, as troops close in on Ukraine's capital, Kiev. The images from U.S. satellite company Maxar also show evidence of fighting outside the city, including destroyed vehicles and a damaged bridge. More than 70 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in the eastern city of Okatra after a Russian missile strike on military base in what is thought to be the biggest loss of life in a single incident in Moscow's military operation. The death toll reported by Ukrainian officials in the city follows a sharp intensification of Russian bombardments of Ukrainian cities, including the use of multiple launch rocket systems against civilian areas, which has led to increasing casualties. And just for today's morning, I have got a message from our previous caller, Ksenia Tabaka, who was very stressed and very fear from the Russian attacks. Let's have a listen.
I'm very sorry, but I cannot do anything because if I stay here for like a little bit longer, you might witness me being bombed under G. So that can be like really interesting interview, but sorry.
Talks between delegates from Russia and Ukraine near the Belarusian border seem not to offer any breakthrough to the ongoing crisis. Our discussion have been agreed to continue, while fighting in Ukrainian cities have not yet stopped. Nabil Khazini reports.
As these helicopters arrived, a hope for peace was aspired. But in the end, hours of discussions gave no breakthrough to the crisis, except for delaying the hope, as the two sides agreed to give a chance for other talks. For now, fighting remains, and Ukrainians continue to defend.
We will not surrender. We will not capitulate. We will not give up a single inch of our territory. This is not the goal of our fight.
Hours before the Russian-Ukrainian negotiations began, at a location near the border with Belarus, Ukrainian officials said Russia had yet again shelled major cities overnight.
That's all that's left. I want to appeal to everyone. Russians, Kazakhs, Uzbeks, Turks, all over the world, fight, go to protests. Your countries will be next. Stop this madness, we are suffering. They destroyed a nearby children's clinic, houses. What are we guilty of if tomorrow they start shooting at you like that with missiles? What will you do? We were left with nothing.
Near Kharkiv's administrative building, a large explosion hit the center of Ukraine's second largest city. The explosion created a huge fireball that appeared to engulf several cars driving through an area called Freedom Square. Russian convoy of troops and artillery approaching the capital, Kiev, was welcomed by a tenacious defense of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians.
This is a residential area with no military objects.
This footage shows what is apparently a residential area which was also struck by Russian missiles. The number of casualties is hard to be determined. Ukraine's health ministry says at least 352 civilians, including 14 children, have been killed, while Russia has not yet commented on civilian casualties.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has gone from downplaying the likelihood of a Russian attack to inspire Ukrainians to fight against the invaders. This willingness to stay and defend his seemingly emboldened the Ukrainian people to do the same as the country throws its citizens into the war. Osama Yadi.
In an attempt to repel the Russian military action, Ukrainian civilians chose not to flee to the frontiers of other countries and preferred to stay in their homeland to defend it against the Russian military action, which took control of the biggest cities in addition to the country's capital, which has been encircled by Russian military forces. In an address to the people of Ukraine overnight, President Zelensky stated that everyone who could join the struggle against the invaders must do so. Ukrainian men and women have volunteered in droves to get weapons and learn how to defend their country.
The matter of fact, I stuck in the city, but I'm from Kiev, and I want to be helpful, and I want to do something to help my country to defend itself against Russian aggression.
Authorities have handed out weapons to everyone willing to fight, teaching them how to use assault rifles and throw grenades. Local residents in the western city of Uzhhorod gathered outdoors with empty drink bottles to make Molotov cocktails, in a scene being played out across the country.
It's not just a city, it's a historical city, which has always been an outpost for the defense of our city, Kiev.
It might not seem like much protection against Russian missiles, but so far people power could be Ukraine's best defense. On Tuesday, Zelensky signed a decree temporarily lifting the requirement of entry visas for any foreigner willing to join Ukraine's International Defense Legion. Already Poland's border guard has reported more than 22,000 Ukrainians from across Europe have traveled into the country to fight.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the European Union to integrate without delay his country, which has been fighting a Russian military operation for 5 days. Zelensky posted a photo of himself signing the EU application, a largely symbolic move that could take years to become reality and is unlikely to sit well with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has long accused the West of trying to pull Ukraine into its orbit.
We're addressing the EU regarding the integration of Ukraine without delay via a new special procedure. We're grateful to our partners for being on our side, but our aim is to be with all Europeans and, above all, to be equal.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Himal, and Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament Ruslan Stankovich signed Ukraine's application for membership of the European Union. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calls for Russia to be banned from all ports and airports in the world in a retaliation for Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Today, Russian forces brutally fired on Kharkiv with artillery rockets. It is clearly a war crime. A peaceful city, peaceful residential neighborhoods, no military facilities, evil, armed with missiles, bombs and artillery must be stopped immediately, destroyed economically, to show that humanity is capable of defending itself.
As the conflict reaches its 7th day, Russia is now in full control of significant parts of Ukraine's territory. This map shows Russian troops having spread across the parts of the northeast and the south. Missile strikes and artillery cleared the way for advancing Russian forces from the north. Russian troops crossed the border into Ukraine at the three-way junction between Ukraine, Russia and Belarus. A second, more rapid advance has come down the west side of the Dnieper River via Chernobyl, taking control of a large area to the north and west of Kiev. The Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court in Hague has announced on Monday it will seek court approval to open an investigation into alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Ukraine. More in this report.
The chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court said Monday he plans to open an investigation as rapidly as possible into possible war crimes and crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Prosecutor Karim Khan said that although Ukraine was not a member of the ICC, it had awarded jurisdiction to the court. He said that there was grounds to open an investigation based on a previous preliminary investigation on Crimea and the Donbass published last year and on current events in Ukraine. Earlier in the day, Lithuania had called on the ICC to open an investigation into possible war crimes committed by Russia and Belarus in Ukraine. With evidence mounting of Russia's use of indiscriminate cluster munitions on Ukrainian cities, the government in Kiev is also preparing a case against Moscow to take to The Hague. Ukraine has also taken Russia to the International Court of Justice for having launched an invasion on the pretext of false claims of genocide perpetrated against the country's Russian speakers. While Russia denies those claims, humanitarian agencies have expressed similar concerns.
Different forms of racism and segregation have been reported lately on social media by foreign students in Ukraine trying to pass the Polish borders. Let's have a listen.
Unrest has arrived in Ukraine and civilians are running for their lives. But as Russia continues its advance, racism is not far behind. Indian and African students have been documenting their journey on social media, where several videos show Ukrainian border guards turning back African students and preventing them from crossing the Polish borders.
They're not letting her go. They're not letting the black girl go. We don't have arms. We are students. We don't have arms.
They stopped us at the border and told us that blacks were not allowed, but we could see white people going through.
Another Nigerian student stated that she and other foreigners were ordered off the public transit bus at a checkpoint between Ukraine and Poland border.
We were told to stand aside as the bus drove off with only Ukrainian nationals on board. More than 10 buses came and we were watching everyone leave. We thought after they took all the Ukrainians, they would take us, but they told us that there were no more buses and that we had to walk.
Both African and Indian governments are scrambling to help their nationals escape the Russian invasion, although Ukrainian and Polish representatives are still denying any kind of racism, ensuring that their guards are working within the law.
More than 280,000 Ukrainians sought refuge just in Poland, and it is estimated by the UN that more than 520,000 refugees fled to the other European countries as the military operation continues. Miriam Zian on what's follow.
The massive flow of refugees from Ukraine to the eastern frontier of the European Union showed no signs of subsiding Monday. UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi addressed the UN Security Council by video, saying more than 520,000 refugees had fled Ukraine, a number he said has been rising exponentially hour after hour. According to the latter, the UN expects the total to reach 4 million in the coming weeks. In Poland, which has reported the most arrivals at more than 280,000, trains continued to bring refugees into the border town on Monday. Polish UN ambassador speaking at the General Assembly said that in addition to Ukrainians, those coming included people from 125 nationalities, including Nigerians, Indians, Moroccans, Turks and Algerians. Hungary has opened its doors to all refugees leaving Ukraine, reversing its long-standing opposition to immigration and unwillingness to admit refugees from the Middle East, Africa and Asia.
The situation was very terrible. We had to run because explosions here and there, every minute, run to the bunker and all of that. And to get a train to Lviv was horrible.
According to Germany's Interior Ministry, 1,800 refugees from Ukraine had arrived by early Monday, and the number was constantly growing as more trains from Poland arrived. In Romania, the EU Commissioner for Home Affairs visited a border crossing where thousands of refugees were entering from neighboring Ukraine, commending the heartwarming cooperation between volunteers and authorities.
My specific responsibility as Commissioner for Home Affairs is to make sure that those people that can make it to the border to the European Union should be warmly welcomed.
All EU countries are called upon to respond to the best of their abilities to requests for assistance as the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues.
U.S. security assistance to Ukraine has continued to arrive, including with the last day, a senior defense official said that country which has been fighting a Russian military operation for 5 days. Zelensky posted photos of himself signing the EU application a largely symbolic move that could take years to become reality, and it is unlikely to sit well with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has long accused the West of trying to pull Ukraine into its orbit. Urgent action is needed to avert a looming humanitarian catastrophe in Ukraine, although the international humanitarian law is clear. All parties to the conflict have a legal obligation to ensure that military operations are planned and conducted in a way as to ensure protection of civilians and civilian objects. Let's hear it.
The human cost of violence is becoming more apparent with each passing day. During the last days, the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights confirmed at least 406 civil casualties, including 102 deaths in Ukraine. As thousands of people flee towards the western part of the country, there is a desperate need for food, water, and shelter to complete overstretched response capacities at local levels. The UN Refugee Agency estimates that more than 500,000 people have fled to neighboring countries. More than 100,000 people have been displaced within the country amid below-freezing winter temperatures. More than half of all civilian casualties so far have been recorded in the conflict hotbeds of Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, with the government-controlled areas of these oblasts particularly hard hit by ongoing hostilities. According to a report distributed by OCHA, Ukraine national authorities and national non-governmental organizations are carrying out search and rescue and evacuation operations. However, the escalation of the conflict and guaranteed humanitarian access will be essential to rolling out an effective, principled, and well-targeted response to the unfolding crisis.
Military action in Ukraine has made India's traditional balancing act between Moscow and the West wobbler than ever, with experts saying New Delhi is in a difficult diplomatic situation.
India has as much investment in a good relationship, good or whatever, just a relationship with Russia, as it has in maintaining a relationship with the United States. So it can't afford, because India's challenges in the maritime is where it needs the United States. India's challenges on the continental shelf is where it requires Russia. So, there are not many choices that India has. It could be an issue with the Quad partners. It could become an issue even with the United States, because opinion within the United States is also not monolithic. So India will have to continuously spend energy, resources, hours, as it were, man hours, on trying to make its positions understood by the various parties.
And just now we have got the updates of the report of the impact of the Russian causing the ruble to collapse and chaos in the gas markets, and questions about the impact of these sanctions on both Russian and the global economy.
The latest tranche of economic sanctions applied by the United States, the European Union, Britain and Canada against Russia since Saturday has heavily influenced the Russian ruble. The ruble lost about 25% of its value to trade at 104 to the dollar yesterday, after earlier plummeting as much as 40%, although it did recover slightly in recent hours. In response, the Russian Central Bank has made an emergency decision to hike interest rates from 9.5% to 20%. The bank has also temporarily blocked the sale of securities held by foreigners. The sanctions also included removal of some Russian banks from the SWIFT system, the global financial artery that allows the smooth and rapid transfer of money across borders. Yet until now, it's not known which Russian bank will be removed from the SWIFT. A statement from the UAE, the US, the UK and others said the move would ensure that these banks are disconnected from the international financial system and harm their ability to operate globally.
In another unprecedented step, we will ban in the European Union the Kremlin's media machine. The state-owned Russia Today and Sputnik, as well as their subsidiaries, will no longer be able to spread their lies to justify Putin's war and to sow division in our union.
These new sanctions created division between the European countries because Russia is France and Germany's main provider of oil and natural gas, and finding an alternative supply will not be easy.
According to Russia's UN ambassador, the United States ordered 12 Russian diplomats at the UN to leave by March amid a military operation in Ukraine. Miriam Zian on what follow.
The Biden administration said Monday it would expel 12 Russian intelligence operatives from Moscow's UN mission, accusing them of allegedly engaging in spying activities. The move comes as the U.S. endeavors to isolate Russia diplomatically and economically because of Moscow's military operation. Richard Mills, the deputy representative of the U.S., commented on the American action during the UN Security Council meeting.
And that those diplomats that have been asked to leave the United States were engaged in activities that were not in accordance with their responsibilities and obligations as diplomats. So under Section 13B of the Headquarters Agreement, they have been given a request to depart this country so they do not harm the national security of the host country.
As a reaction, Russia's UN ambassador told reporters that Moscow could respond reciprocally, which means an expulsion for Americans.
I'm sure that the response will follow because it's a diplomatic practice which provides for a tit for tat. It's not our choice. We didn't initiate it. And I think that the answer will be given, but it's not for me to decide.
According to the latter, who learned of the expulsions when he received a phone call during a news conference, Russian diplomats were given until March 7 to leave the U.S. Nebenzia characterized the expulsion as hostile and said that it violated U.S. obligations as the host country. When asked about the Russian ambassador to the U.S. describing the step as hostile, White House press secretary said the move was a direct response to Russian activity.
I think the hostile act is committing espionage activities on our own soil.
The expulsion is part of an ongoing spat over diplomatic privileges between Russia and the U.S.
In a joint statement with the UEFA on Monday, FIFA announced Russia has been expelled from the 2022 World Cup and its team suspended from all international football competitions until further notice after President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. FIFA announced also that Russia teams would be allowed to continue playing under the name of Football Union of Russia, playing home games on neutral territory and behind closed doors, and with the Russian flag and anthem banned. And just to have an idea about the updates, Russia has been expelled from the 2022 World Cup. Russian teams suspended from all international football competitions until further notice. Russian teams would be allowed to continue playing under the name of the Football Union of Russia. Russian football team will play home game on a neutral territory and behind closed doors. Russian flag and anthem were banned. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a reminder for our main top stories. Satellite images show a Russian military convoy stretching about 40,000 miles, far bigger than initially thought, as troops close in Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Talks between delegates from Russia and Ukraine near the Belarusian border seem not to offer any breakthrough to the ongoing crisis. More than 280,000 Ukrainians sought refuge just in Poland, and the UN estimated that more than 52,000 refugees fled to other European countries. That's all the news we have got for this moment. So, see you and have a blessed evening.